Coming up on Tech News Today, SOPA stopped for now. The Universal Music Group can apparently take almost anything down. And the fight for the spectrum gets a little ugly. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Friday, December 16th, 2011. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 30% off your new account for 3 months, go to Squarespace.com and use the offer code TNT12. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm not Sarah Lane.
I am Jason Howell, though.
You're Iyaz Akhtar.
Oh, thanks.
And this is the show where we kick around the tech news of the day, try to make some sense of it all. Joining us, Mr. Julio Ojeda-Zapata from... what's your title?
Oh, I'm just a humble tech writer.
Just a tech writer? Not just a tech writer. You're the tech
I read a column, column here at the St. Paul Pioneer Press. I'm the Andy Ihnatko of the Upper Midwest. How's that?
The Andy Ihnatko of St. Paul, Minnesota. Julio Ojeda-Zapata of the entire Upper Midwest, frankly. That's right. We start today's show with some breaking news.
Dun, 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 dun. Damn it. We totally talked about this, and that didn't even work. Damn it. Nah. Jeez.
Now it's not even funny. Britney Spears, first to hit a million followers on Google+. That was supposed to be the joke. Britney Spears has a million followers on Google+. Let's get into the real news. Apple's A5 processors are being made in Austin, Texas. Reuters reports that Samsung's Austin factory is responsible for the A5. Samsung invested a $3.6 billion amount in their production line with over 1,100 staff. They reached capacity earlier this month, and Apple accounts for all, or almost all, of the non-flash output of the factory. The factory used to just make flash memory. Now it's making the A5 as well. A lot of people are speculating this might mean that the rumor that there is a Brazil assembly plant for Foxconn could be true, because otherwise it would seem like quite a haul to have your processors built in Austin and then shipped all the way over to China to Foxconn to be assembled.
Yeah, so this basically means that a Korean company has a factory in the United States, and there are jobs here, actually, because A5 is going to this is the hot chip for right now, at least for Apple, and they probably will do the A6 eventually, assuming Apple and Samsung don't, destroy this relationship. They seem to be killing each other with all the patent stuff, but they seem to still be going strong with this this factory.
A lot of people are excited about this. Julio, you were mentioned Dwight Silverman over there in Houston is excited about this. But is there anything else for us outside of Texas to get excited about here?
Well, I'm having a huge who cares where it's made moment. I mean, if it were not Apple, if it were another company, would we care if its chips are made here or there or over there? Dwight Silverman's excited because it's a Texas story. If the factory were down the street from here in St. Paul, maybe I'd be excited. I'm not really caring all that much, where the various components for Apple devices are made. Yeah, that's just me. I don't know.
I think it's interesting, but I think maybe because I used to live in Austin, I think it's interesting. Apple has a call center in Austin, but I don't think that has anything to do with this. But frankly, you're right, though. It's not going to make our devices cheaper. It's not going to get them to us faster. It's not really going to have any kind of impact.
Actually, wouldn't it make the prices more expensive because they're being manufactured in the United States because of the workers' rights that we have? I mean, that's one of the reasons that companies go overseas so often.
Well, they're being assembled. The processors are being assembled here. Right. One would think that Apple is not going to pay someone more than they have to. So if they're being made in Austin, that must be the cheapest way to make the processors.
So this is purely an economic decision. There's no Made in America pride from Apple, other than design in California on there.
No.
You know what? If they really were proud of this would be emblazoned on this. Apple, made in the USA.
Apple's response was, we do not comment on this. And remember, this is just the processor. They're not assembled in Austin. Right. That's just where the A5 is made. And Austin has a lot of semiconductor talent. They've got graduates coming out of the University of Texas. Freescale Semiconductor is there. Texas Instruments is there. There's tons of Applied Materials is there. Wang used to be there. I don't know if they're still there. So yeah, there's a ton of of chip stuff there. So if you're into chips, maybe you're into this story. Verizon has agreed to buy Cox Communications advanced wireless spectrum availability for $315 million. If you remember, earlier on Tech News Today, we reported that Verizon bought spectrum from Spectrum Co., which is made up of Comcast, Time Warner, and Bright House Cable. And as part of that deal, Verizon agreed that they wouldn't roll out Fios anywhere outside of the territory it's already in, and they would sell Comcast, Time Warner, and Bright House Cable in their stores. Now they've got the same deal with Cox Communications. Cox is getting out of the wireless business. Any of their current wireless customers have until March 30th. So to transition, and then Cox is going to hand over the spectrum to Verizon. Verizon will be able to sell Cox Cable as well.
And that means Verizon's going to be splitting its LTE network on 2 bands, which this means it's going to be more robust. So this is Verizon constantly putting more money into their infrastructure. Effectively, this means that we were joking about this, but like I think Verizon's getting more and more awesome because now we have LTE. They're already like all over the country with super fast speeds. Now they're going to have a more reliable network. Meanwhile, we have AT&T trying to buy T-Mobile or trying to salvage that deal because what they're doing is we're just going to buy the spectrum from these guys. We're not going to actually work very hard, make our system as great as what Verizon's doing. I mean, the other thing is I'm just curious why there was no news of a bidding war. I mean, were there no other companies out there?
My guess is there's not a bidding war because what Cox wanted is exactly what Verizon gave them, the ability to sell their service in the Verizon stores, and AT&T probably didn't want to agree to that. They're still trying to roll out AT&T UVerse in multiple markets, so they don't want. They've decided they don't want to restrict themselves.
Could this been could Sprint or not I want to say T-Mobile was trying to still do a business, but let's assume they are. But couldn't Sprint or T-Mobile be trying to do the same thing? I mean, why wouldn't they branch out? Or maybe even Dish. I mean, they were trying to move into this sector. Why not?
Why not what?
Why wouldn't these other guys be involved in this? I mean, other than the fact that Dish is not going to sell Cox Communications video.
Julio, do you think that we're just not hearing that these guys are involved, or do you have a thought about Iyaz's question?
Not really. I don't really have much of a response to Iyaz's question specifically, but this Verizon news is another bit of good news on the Verizon front. People often ask me, which carrier should I go with, and Verizon is often the one I recommend because in major metropolitan areas, it's deploying its LTE network, which I've found to be really fantastic. And then Verizon is known for excellent coverage in outlying areas. So Verizon, is rapidly becoming, in that sense, the best carrier. And so I greet this news, with cheer, as it were, because it's
with
just
open cell phone antennas.
It's dominant.
Yeah. Spectrum crunch is looming, though. I mean, that's the interesting thing. Verizon actually had enough spectrum to, they said, carry them through 2015. AT&T says we have to have T-Mobile or at least their spectrum or we're going to have trouble next year. So there's lots of initiatives out there. White Space Initiative is proceeding apace, but that's going slowly. Light Squared has had to agree to give up half its spectrum, and the proposal to let cell phone companies pay television stations to give up their frequencies is tied up in political battles right now over how that procedure would go. The idea is if a channel isn't using its space or a channel goes out of business and that license holder isn't broadcasting on it anymore, Congress would pass a law to make it easy for cell phone companies to buy that spectrum and use it. But Julio, you've got some thoughts on this matter, I know.
When the digital transition was occurring, I covered that very aggressively, and my opinion is Congress needs to move very carefully on this because there are people out there that depend on this over-the-air digital spectrum for television watching. These are people that can't afford cable; they just want the most affordable option. There are many people out there, but they're poor people. They don't have a lot of political clout. You don't hear from them very much. And it would be very easy for Congress to forget about such people and start whittling away at these over-the-air options that currently exist. And I think Congress needs to move very carefully. I actually use over-the-air digital television reception with a tuner on my Mac, so I guess I'm a little biased because I use it every day. But I've run into so many people, very poor people, that use this, depend on it because they can't afford anything else. And you have to keep those people in mind when you're making these political decisions because this affects them. And if you take stuff away from them, they won't be able to do very much about it because they have no political clout whatsoever.
No,
I just
as I understand it, they're not. The proposal isn't to take stations off the air. The proposal is to take airwaves that aren't being used because there are fewer television stations, and they expect that there will be fewer television stations. So it's not trying to push people off the air. It's trying to say, hey, if we've got unused spectrum in television area, let's transition it to wireless. Is that still bother you because it's moving things away?
My point is you have to sort of balance the priorities. You have to maintain an aggressive philosophy of making the spectrum available as a service to the people that need it because they can't afford anything else. And I'm detecting a slippery slope, where this might increasingly become less and less of a priority. And I think that's a problem. That's kind of all I'm saying.
The FCC was saying that they're trying to get high-speed internet to further and further places. That's one of the reasons they want to use this frequency, because it has, excuse me, very long ranges. You can get some really far-away distances with these things. And the question now becomes, like, how are you going to get your information? Is internet more important than television? You can get television through the internet. If this is part of, like, a federally funded program where you can actually have low-cost internet access, I could see this being a great idea, because there's been discussions of that. That's what they're going to use that universal service fee for nowadays, to have penetration of broadband. And to me, nationwide fast broadband might be, take away 2 or 3 channels. Or the thing is, those companies, television channels, are still going to be paid. Those stations are being paid by, this is the proposal, will be paid by the cell phone companies.
They get bought.
Yeah.
Their spectrum is bought. I think if it's done right, it can probably address Julio's concerns by making it take the spectrum that is being taken away from television and moving it towards accessible internet. It's only a problem if the people who are relying on over-the-air broadcast right now aren't able to avail themselves of the wireless internet that is made possible by the release of that television spectrum.
The speeds, the bit rate of video you get with uncompressed HD video over the air is like 30 megabits per second. Like that is crazy fast if you could use that for data.
If that could be cheap, accessible data for people, yeah. All right, let's move on to the Stop Online Piracy Act, which surprisingly did not get voted on. This was the markup committee. The idea was to mark up the bill, maybe add some amendments, send it to the House floor for a vote. Representative Lamar Smith of Texas had really been pushing to have a vote today and get it on its way. There was some resistance from his fellow representatives. And finally, after a lot of discussion about the domain name system, Representative Jason Chaffetz of Utah urged Smith to postpone the session until technical experts could be brought in to testify whether altering the Internet's domain naming system to fight websites deemed dedicated to infringing activity would create security risks. And Smith surprisingly agreed to further explore the provision that lets the Attorney General order changes to Internet infrastructure. They will resume hearings on the earliest practical day Congress is back in session. So that's January.
Well, then there's no solid date on that either. They could just keep pushing it off and off and off. This is like Christmas came early. So is not going to be in effect anytime soon, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be revised and re-proposed. I mean, we've seen this with Protect IP, and then SOPA shows up. There's always going to be some other variant of this popping its head up.
And if you're still wondering, okay, what is it that, I've heard SOPA is bad, but what is so bad? One of the things that is so bad is the way it asks for the domain name system to work. They are saying that they would like the domain name system to require service providers to block access to sites. Now, they're not going to block the site directly anymore. They actually changed the wording. The provision no longer mandates DNS blocking. However, it permits falsifying IP addresses. So if you say, I want to go to the Pirate Bay, your ISP might be required under SOPA to return a falsified domain name system saying, oh, there isn't any site there, even though there is. The problem with that is, as Vince Cerf wrote in his response to the House committee, Vince Cerf, you might know, he helped invent the Internet. He says, any response that provides a false IP address triggers potential damage to the intent of DNSSEC. That is the secure domain name system that says your domain name is encrypted by the server and the receiver, and nobody in the middle can change that. And what SOPA does is says, we would like to change that on the ISP level here in the United States. Falsifying responses to domain name resolution requests will compromise the downgrade resistance of next-generation improvements to DNSSEC. because systems that do not receive a signed answer from a resolver will fall back to accepting unsigned responses to resolve a domain name. And you cannot, the signed means that it's certified, like this is the actual domain name you requested. That's what's secure, right? Is when you say thepiratebay.org and you get a response back. It's signed by the Pirate Bay saying, yeah, this is us, for sure. What they're asking in SOPA is to say, instead, give a false name, which means that your server then has to say, well, now I have to accept unsigned requests because that's the law. The law of the land says I have to accept insecure requests. And that means the bad guys can then go and serve unsigned requests and hijack domain names. It's a big problem in the way the domain name systems. They basically want to enshrine in law a man-in-the-middle attack at the request of the Attorney General.
And all of this is it's again, like I was saying this yesterday, it's a workaround because there's really no way to directly impact via personal jurisdiction these sites. I mean, if they're on foreign soil and they don't even target themselves in the United States, there's really no interest by the MPAA or RAAA to go even after these people. It's very difficult to prove some of this stuff. So this little bubble that they would put with SOPA is a mess. It's the security issues here. Even, I mean, there's so many things wrong with this that I don't even know where to start anymore.
Well, here's the other part, and Surf and plenty of other peoples like Dan Kaminsky have pointed this out. The domain name system is just a big phone book, right? It says if you want Iyaz Akhtar, his phone number is 415-555-1212. That's not really his phone number. That's information, but
you can call it and find out my phone number.
That's what the domain name system is. So what SOPA says is, when someone says, give me Iyaz Akhtar, tell them I don't have his phone number, even though you do. Thing is, now everybody can go say, oh, well, here's Iyaz's phone number, so just go call it directly. There are other ways to get the number. And in fact, on Reddit today, there's the SOPA emergency list where they are compiling the actual IP addresses of all the major websites that might be blocked, like Al Jazeera, Wikipedia, Reddit, YouTube, so that you can just type in the numbers in your browser and you'll be taken directly to those websites. You don't have to type in the domain name and use the domain name system. The domain name system is just there to make it easy.
Now, the SOPA itself would actually try to make it very difficult for search engines to even be able to show you what you're going to get. So that means, are we going to see, theoretically, if this went through, we'd see like the return of the directory. Like your web pages would just be this giant table. You'd be like, okay, I'm going to just do a find for Pirate Bay.
Well, that's what the domain system is a big giant table. So you're saying, like, well, instead of using that convenient table,
we're going to put something in the way.
Yeah, exactly. And then that could bring about the rise of alternate domain name systems, which we already have. There's some dark nets out there. Those could become much more popular. And then we have no control and no standards because we have competing domain name systems.
And if things aren't signed, you can get all kinds of horrible stuff on your computer. Isn't it? And then all security is screwed. So we're all doomed. But then again, didn't get passed. So, yay.
It didn't get passed yet.
It's on
the fight's not over, but it actually got delayed. Julio, what do you think about this description? Bobby Digital on Twitter said, SOPA is like hiring SEAL Team 6 to stop people from sneaking into the movie theater.
Yeah, I really like that. I might tweet something similar. It's like, see, the whole problem with this debate, the explanation that you're giving is very reasonable. I mean, you explain it in a way that these politicians should be able to understand, but their eyes seem to be glazing over and they just seem determined not to fully understand this. They're just making political decisions based on very incomplete information. And I'm just wondering if somebody should tell them, what if you made it massively more difficult to mail a letter or to make a phone call? Why don't you tell them, look, if you do this, you're going to be adding a whole other series of tubes and the internet's just going to break down. I mean, I just get really frustrated because the politicians don't seem to be grasping the legislation that they're talking about. I've run into this time and time again. I've had conversations with politicians about other tech subjects, and I'm talking to them, and it suddenly dawns on me, they don't know what they're talking about. All the information that they're publishing is written by their staffers. I got into an argument with the staffer of a Minnesota senator one time because it suddenly dawned on me this politician didn't know what the hell she was talking about. And the staffer got mad at me because I was making her look bad. So too bad. I'm sorry.
But it would work, though. I mean, if you did send the SEAL team to stop people going to move. It would totally work. If you break the internet, piracy on the internet would be stopped. There would be still counterfeit goods and everything. You could get a DVD for sale on the street, which I hear it funds crime and horrible things according to videos.
Actually, it wouldn't stop piracy. It
doesn't do anything.
That's the problem here is you only need one copy in an infinitely copyable medium for piracy to exist. And so you can't it is virtually impossible to stop piracy by blocking websites.
Well, it could bring back SneakerNet. That will be the primary thing. Hey, you got the USB?
There's always another way around. There's always that's the issue. There's always another way around.
There's a way.
However, that hasn't stopped Universal Music Group from claiming the right to block or remove any YouTube video. We're going to talk about that in a second. But first, let's thank our sponsor, Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website or blog. Squarespace has an easy-to-use UI for creating and managing a website or blog. It's optimized for beginners. It's optimized for experts. You can go in there and use the what you see is what you get web interface and create your website, make it beautiful, and you can do it for free. You don't have to use a credit card to try it out. Go sign up for the trial right now, squarespace.com. You can even import your current blog. Just do it. Just import it in, see what it looks like. You're not going to lose your old blog. Just try it. See if you like it. If you like the reliability of having Squarespace's servers behind you so you don't have to worry about your web host, if you like the design elements that you can make your site look beautiful and professional with just a few tweaks, then sign up for squarespace.com and use the offer code TNT12, and you'll get 30% off of the first 3 months of your subscription. So give it a shot. Start a website today. Maybe start a website for a friend or a friend who's got a business. It's a great holiday gift for somebody who's starting a business and they need a website to promote their business. Make them a beautiful Squarespace site and then hand them the keys. Squarespace.com, we thank them for their support of Tech News Today.
Can I have a Squarespace note?
Yeah, sure, Julio. What do you got?
A good friend of mine, Josh Bratton, Bratten, and here in the Twin Cities, he's the host of an unofficial Squarespace podcast that I recommend people check out. It's called Content Structure and Style. That's the name of the podcast. It's on iTunes. And he's done a really good job with that. So if people are interested in learning about podcasts, about Squarespace and want to check out a very informative podcast, I highly recommend it.
Excellent. That's great news. I didn't know about that podcast. I'll have to check it out myself. Let's look at the Universal Music Group. They filed yesterday, by the end of the day, their response to the judge's order that they explain why they had taken down the mega upload video, as well as the episode of Tech News Today. Universal Music Group says that the takedown was sent pursuant to the UMG YouTube agreement, which apparently gives Universal Music Group, quote, the right to block or remove user-posted videos through YouTube's CMS, that's their content management system, based on a number of contractually specified criteria. They further, actually, just on a side note, say that they created a reference file for the mega upload video that would be used to automatically take down files, and they believe that this reference file system was responsible for the accidental removal of Tech News Today's episode 391. But essentially what Universal Music Group is arguing here is that they have an agreement with YouTube to be able to take down any video that they deem contractually allowed to take down. Now, it doesn't mean they can take down any video, but they can take down videos for more than just copyright infringement. And therefore, Mega Upload's lawsuit saying that Universal Music Group is abusing the DMCA is invalid because they weren't using, this is brilliant legally, right? They weren't using the DMCA. This was a private agreement between them and YouTube, so Mega Upload has no standing. Private
deals are fine, right? YouTube is a private company or part of Google, so they're not the government. There's no need for due process. You don't even worry about this. If we have a side deal, and that's the way it works. Don't forget, YouTube is just one, it seems like a de facto standard to a lot of people, but it's not the only place to go. You can always put up this video somewhere else. So if they have a deal together, then they have a deal together. Whether or not it's such a narrow statement from UMG, so it's really nice and tight there.
Well, yeah, it seems nice and tight until YouTube tells Techland blog at time.com and a few other websites, our partners do not have the right to take down videos from YouTube unless they own the rights to them or they are live performances controlled through exclusive agreements with their artists, which is why we reinstated it being the video. So YouTube's saying, wait a minute, Universal's not telling you the whole story. They don't have the right to just take down anything. They abused their direct access to the content management system, and Tech News Today got hit in the process.
Yeah, I mean, this still says that Universal has some kind of access to their CMS. They can just go in.
I think that's normal, is that all of these big media companies have been given direct access, so because YouTube doesn't have the staff to do it. So the UMG is saying, hey, you know what, you don't have the staff to do this. We'll go in and do it. We'll do it ourselves. But they abused it in this case.
I wonder if YouTube, they're going to start wondering, like, will UMG have to like put in a request to YouTube? Okay, look, we think this has got to be taken down.
You're kidding me,
it's
right?
Gonna
you think
create...
YouTube's gonna you think Universal's gonna agree to that?
No, not at all.
No.
I'm just thinking, though, Google has been kind of aggressive at times when it comes to what they're doing lately. So if they want to put a stand, if they want to make a stand, now is the time to do it.
Oh, they won't make a stand.
They want to have the content on their site. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They're going to bend because they want to have...
They're not going to change a thing.
Legit music. They want to have legit video. They want to make sure that Google Music Service is fine. They don't want to take off Universal, because I still think they don't have Universal on their music service.
Well, this is probably the Vivo agreement. YouTube has an agreement with Vivo Music Service, and Universal has music on Vivo. Julio, what do you make of this whole Universal Music mega upload mess?
Well, it's hard to say because I don't know why, what exactly the private secret rationale for pulling this thing down was. But I think the issue here for me is transparency. If Google, for any reason, is going to be acceding to the wishes of a content provider and doing something like this, it has to be transparent and it has to disclose. I think it should disclose, why it's doing this. I don't know if that's idealistic of me or whether it has any legal standing, but I think that should be the priority. If Google is going to be adhering to the wishes of these content companies and trampling on this other party, that party should know why. There should be transparency. I think that's the bottom line.
I want to quickly correct myself. They do have Universal at Google Music.
So I think that what we're seeing here is the legal maneuverings of Universal Music Group. Mega Upload filed a lawsuit saying they're abusing the DMCA. So Universal is trying to defend against that, saying, no, we're not. This is a private agreement. YouTube's now caught in the position of looking like they allow Universal to run rampant and pull down everything they want. So YouTube comes out and says, oh, hold on. We do not do that. Universal is only allowed to pull down things that have copyright infringement. However, there may be a contractual agreement which doesn't use the DMCA, but for all intents and purposes only allows them to pull down copyright infringement, as well as these live performances. So there's more than just copyright infringement. So Universal's not lying in their court case. And it may allow Universal Music to defend themselves against Mega Upload with a maneuver that says, hey, we're not actually using the DMCA. We're using this other thing that's almost like the DMCA. YouTube says, no, this thing is the DMCA. It's just a private agreement, but because it's a private agreement, they're able to get away from Mega Upload's case.
That's pretty much it.
I think that's what's happening here. And it means, in the upshot, if you're like, that confused the hell out of me, what does that mean? It means that nothing is going to change as far as copyright law in the United States goes, and this is going to happen again.
Well, you're going to have to, like, the other thing is, if you want to put out content out there, you should be looking at more than YouTube. You got to be paying attention to this, because these guys are going to take down stuff at any time. It seems like if UMG thinks they have copyright interest,
yeah, but YouTube's such a huge platform. A lot of people aren't going to choose another way because it means that they're not going to have as many viewers. And so what's going to happen instead is it's going to have a chilling effect on reporting of news, because they're going to look at Tech News Today and say, "Ooh, well, I don't want to get taken down, so I don't want to fight with that." So I'm just not gonna show, and I'm not gonna comment. And then it's
well, then it comes down to integrity versus views. You got to get your message out there somehow.
Well, it's practicality, though. I mean, if your message goes out to nobody, what's the point of putting it out there?
It's out there.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube is such a big platform. I think it's incumbent on YouTube to have a better policy, to review their policy and say, look, we have a responsibility because we are such a huge platform to not allow the industry to ride roughshod over us. The whole Viacom thing is well in the past now. Get over it. You don't have to be bending over backwards to prove that you're not that you're against piracy. Let's see a review of this. Use this, YouTube, as a clarion call to review how you handle copyright material, and build in some review for fair use. I think that's incumbent upon them to do. They don't have to. It's not the law. But I think it would be the responsible thing to do. Otherwise, that you're right. There should be a movement against putting things on YouTube.
Well, I mean, that, or just like, look, if you're going to blast stuff out, you can distribute it to more than YouTube. There's Blip, Vio, there's TWiT. just tried to do the same thing.
But frankly, you're picking a smaller audience at that point.
It's better than having no audience, is what I'm saying. If you're going to get taken down, you should have another alternative. And again, YouTube isn't the only one, and they're a private company, and there's very little you can do and go, oh, you're taking away my rights. You don't have rights with YouTube, okay? They're a private company.
Right, but that's like saying, don't put your music on iTunes because you don't like a policy. You basically you're relegating yourself to obscurity because that's where the huge audience is. I'm not saying you're wrong if you want to take a principled stand, but I think you have to consider that if somebody really is trying to build up a big audience, right now they kind of have to choose YouTube. We don't. We choose all kinds of other places, but we're lucky in that way. All right, William Lawrence Cassidy, accused of using Twitter to harass and cause substantial emotional distress to a religious figure identified in court papers as AZ. The New York Times thinks it's probably Elise Zioli, a Buddhist religious leader. He has been cleared under free speech. U.S. District Judge Roger W. Titus wrote in a 27-page ruling, although in bad taste, Mr. Cassidy's tweets and blog posts about AZ challenge her character and qualifications as a religious leader. And while Mr. Cassidy's speech may have inflicted substantial emotional distress, the government's indictment here is directed squarely at protected speech, anonymous, uncomfortable internet speech addressing religious matters.
So, I mean, it's good to see that Twitter I guess, whatever you write on Twitter is still protected. Now, again, back to my private company thing, Twitter could be angry about this, and they say, look, if it says in our policy you can't harass other people, they could kick this guy off if they wanted to as well. Just because this guy's writing there, I mean, Twitter can have the option of
Twitter's staying out of this. Yeah,
they could if they wanted to,
as they should. This is clearly a case of whether speech should be allowed or not.
Right. So as for the speech concern, if people are worried about this religious leader and they're like, oh wow, she's being like this, her reputation is being thrown away, she can always sue him for other things. By the way, free speech is one aspect, but if there's actual emotional distress, you can sue for that. It's just not a crime.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a crime. I mean, what's interesting to me about this case is here we have internet speech where a judge is saying, oh no, doesn't matter how harmful it may be in certain quarters, it's not against the law because the First Amendment protects free speech. However, if she was bringing a copyright suit, they would bend over backwards to allow her to win it in the current climate. Don't you think, Julio?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. This case resonates with me because I've lost count of the times over the course of my journalism career, extending back to college, where I have conversations with people where I tell them, sometimes speech is despicable, sometimes speech is reprehensible, it's repugnant, but it's protected. It's free speech. People have a right to make complete fools of themselves and say things that are awful, but you have to protect that because you can't just protect speech that you agree with, that you like. And it amazes me how many times I have conversations with people who they don't seem to understand that fundamental concept. And so this is a story that really resonates with me because it sort of goes to that core principle.
There's a pretty good article on The Atlantic today from a First Amendment lawyer. I'm trying to get his name here. What's his name? But it's basically saying that in the copyright debate, Marvin Amori, First Amendment lawyer and a legal fellow at the New America Foundation's Open Technology Initiative, he's basically saying, should copyright be allowed to override speech rights? And he says, when we talk about defamation, which is actually what this Twitter case was about, when we talk about defamation, we bend over backwards to protect free speech because it is incumbent on a free society to have speech be as open as possible. However, for some reason, we've forgotten that when we talk about copyright, and we're willing to just throw everything out.
What do you mean they're throwing everything out? What particular, I guess, securities are being tossed out?
I'm simplifying today, but for instance, Congress is considering passing major legislation to change the definition of online infringement while supposedly aimed at foreign rogue sites. The legislation's new definitions would alter the copyright safe harbor and make platforms for user-generated speech like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube liable for copyright infringement committed by users. That's SOPA. Whereas right now,
essentially saying the presumption of guilt versus the presumption of innocence.
Yeah, this guy who was possibly defaming didn't get Twitter in trouble at all. He didn't even get himself in trouble.
But if he had, I guess, stolen, so if somebody actually parroted his entire Twitter account, because what the guy wrote was already copywritten by actually writing it, So if somebody actually plagiarized this entire thing, then Twitter could get in trouble because it's been copywritten already?
Here's what he says. Because of the threat to online speech platforms, companies like Tumblr, civil liberties groups like EFF, and Fight for the Future coordinated an American Censorship Day in November. Even the European Parliament has launched criticism of SOPA. Contrast this with defamation. Imagine if our nation or another had proposed legislation to punish any website for defamation committed by its users. Imagine also that enforcement against such sites, defined as dedicated to defamation, would include automatically cutting off advertising and credit card processing, removing sites from search engines, and messing with the global internet addressing system to shut them down.
That sounds pretty horrendous, actually.
That's exactly what they're doing, but put copyright infringement in for defamation.
That's really strange. Now I got to think about that one.
Yeah, it's a poser. I'll give you that. All right, let's finish up our discussion with Carrier IQ. A nice, simple story. Your senator, Al Franken, had asked all of the folks who use Carrier IQ to report on how they use it, and the reports are in for all but T-Mobile and Motorola. T-Mobile and Motorola were given until December 20th. They needed a little extra time for some reason, but AT&T put out what devices they use. They also use Carrier IQ in their Mark the Spot app, although not on the iPhone. If you use Mark the Spot on the iPhone, that does not have Carrier IQ. But Mark the Spot on other platforms do. Sprint uses it on 26 million devices, although it's being reported now, according to Mobile Burn and Geek.com reporting it as well, that they're asking their partners to remove Carrier IQ from all their devices. So Sprint's having a change of heart. Samsung pointed out all of its products that it installs Carrier IQ on and insists that it's only at behest of the actual carriers. Again, it's all about the carriers. HTC the same way. So yeah, other than the Mark the Spot thing, that's kind of interesting. The fact that Sprint has so many, not a big surprise here.
Well, the thing is also, like, RIM put out instructions because they didn't authorize Carrier IQ to be on their phones. You can actually go to their site and find out how to remove it from your device if it's there. The weird thing is Carrier IQ has been, I think the technology has been a little bit vilified because it's, okay, this stuff, if your phone isn't working or wired, there's drop calls and things, this is data you kind of want the carriers to have. You want to make sure that you have, hopefully, a better network over time.
Well, Mark the Spot is the perfect way to use Carrier IQ, which is I decide, hey, this is a bad spot. Send this information. I have control of it. I think that's great.
But then again, that requires action, right?
Yeah.
And this kind of a little bit more passive.
It would be better otherwise.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, so like I think hopefully there'll be another way for the networks to figure out how to make things better. But I mean, where does this put Carrier IQ again? Okay, so we have this. We've talked about this before. There are companies that are taking it off. Sprint's not using them anymore. They lost a giant contract now. Is that what it seems like?
Yeah, it could hurt them. Hurt their pocketbook. They're obviously not. Sprint's not going to be using it on 26 million devices. That's going to hurt Carrier IQ. That's what they've been afraid of this whole time, is that they'll just get obliterated because they have a bad name. Some other company can come and start doing the same thing, learn from the mistakes, implement it more responsibly, and make bank now.
Or Carrier IQ will change its name.
Or change, yeah.
That's my go-to.
Start a new company, change the name.
CIQ coming next year.
Have all the executives change their names. Julio, do you have any worries about Carrier IQ? Are you glad to see your senator fighting to get to the bottom of this?
Well, I just wonder, backtracking a little bit, I wonder if the whole thing might have turned out a little differently for Carrier IQ if their initial response hadn't been so aggressive.
Yeah,
I think they might have gotten themselves out of this jam if they had handled this a little differently.
Yeah, if they hadn't started with a cease and desist.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right, let's get on with the show then. To the news fuse. Zynga went public today and opened at $11 a share, the high end of what people were expecting. After about 2 hours of trading, though, the company's stock took a dive back down to $9.50. It's been pretty volatile, but it did raise Zynga about $1 billion, and that's what Zynga wanted out of it.
To the rumor mill. Digitimes reports that Apple is likely to introduce a 7.85-inch iPad before the end of 2012.
No way.
Yeah, well, the move apparently is influenced by the success of smaller devices like the Kindle Fire and larger smartphones. You know, Apple doesn't have any large phones yet. The 7.85-inch display would be provided by LG and AUO. Also in the rumor mill, a redesigned internal part, a little wire for an Apple product, could be for a totally redesigned iPad 3. Or not. I mean, it's just a little
iPad
wire.
3 we're going to get. Julio, Think it's possible we get a 7-inch or 7.85-inch iPad?
My suspicion is Apple intended to do this all along, and certainly will have an extra incentive to do it, with so much competition from the Fire. And I think even though Amazon does not have the flair for interface design that Apple does, I think Amazon has made it, has confirmed that with a little bit of imagination and design flair, you can create an interface on a smaller device that's somewhat different from the larger device, but is equally attractive and easy to use. So I think Apple is going to come up with something that's going to sort of put Steve Jobs. I think he was lying. I think Steve Jobs intended to go this way all along. He used to do that a lot.
Yeah. No iPod ever needs to play video.
Exactly, and so I think this is coming, and I think it's going to be great.
All right. Back at Google I/O in the spring of last year, the Google Update Alliance was announced, a working group of companies that promised to update their Android phones for at least 18 months. So rest assured, you buy a phone, for 18 months, you'll always be upgraded to the next version of Android. PC Mag decided to take a look and see how well that's going. Companies responded, but did not answer all of PC Mag's questions. Motorola and Samsung both ignored specific questions about upgrading certain phones while reiterating they're both looking into ice cream sandwich. That's kind of far from the you're guaranteed to get it for at least 18 months.
Yeah, PC Mag, they kept asking and they didn't get responses for these things. The newest version of iOS, that's 5.0.1, might be the key to getting Siri on non-iPhone 4S devices. iPhone hacker Muscle Nerd found that the RAM disks are now unencrypted with the update and software, and with that update and software can be extracted to port Siri to the iPhone 4. So is anyone else expecting iOS 5.0.2 tomorrow? I am.
Really? Yeah? Well, it's going to come pretty quick. You're right. Galaxy Nexus has a secret. It's actually carrying the tablet version of ice cream sandwich like a little kangaroo baby in its pouch. Michael Kreider from Android Community had to root the phone and alter the internal components of the device to find this out. But considering Android 4.0 is supposed to unify tablet and phone interfaces, it makes sense that you would find that tablet version in there.
In a pre-trial hearing, Bradley Manning's attorney called for the judge presiding over the case to recuse himself due to a conflict of interest and including bias. The presiding officer is Lieutenant Colonel Paul Almanza, who works for the Justice Department, which opened an investigation on WikiLeaks. Now, Manning was arrested because he is suspected of leaking restricted material to that whistleblowing site. Almanza said he would not recuse himself from the case, and they're going to continue.
Both Sony and Warner Music are suing music streaming site Grooveshark. The two companies join Universal in asserting that Grooveshark infringes on their copyrights. Grooveshark argues that it is within the DMCA's safe harbor because it is not responsible for what its users upload. It's
that YouTube excuse.
Classic battle.
eBay will give you a $10 voucher if you spend $100 online, but here's the catch. The voucher is only valid in a retailer's brick-and-mortar store. eBay is working with places like Toys R Us and Dick's Sporting Goods to lure people into the crazy world of offline shopping. The promotion runs until the 19th of December.
It's the new trend, folks. I'm telling you, it's going to catch on. Microsoft will introduce a LastPass-like feature to Windows 8. If you sign in using a live ID, your passwords will be stored in the cloud and will be in sync with other trusted Windows 8 machines. You just need to remember your live ID credentials, and it'll do the rest of the work.
I like it.
That way you can have really secure passwords. So, if you don't trust Microsoft, there's 1Password and LastPass, but that's a good feature. I like that Microsoft is doing it. Let's move on to the randomizer.
Randomizer.
Now, Julio and I agree on this. When we get on a plane, we don't want to talk. We just want to read our book, get to where we're going. We're really not into having a long conversation through the whole flight. So I'm actually excited about KLM with their plan to allow you to pick your seatmate based on social networks. If again, not everybody on the plane has to opt in, so not everybody's going to. But if people have opted in, you can meet and seat, and pick somebody that looks interesting to sit next to. Now, the idea here is that people who like to talk would then sit with each other, which I think is good for the misanthropes like me. But I think you could also flag your profile like don't want to talk. That'll keep people from picking you.
But would you be using this tool to try to find people who like don't talk? Or do you want to see somebody who has a lot of friends, so maybe they're doing a lot of Facebook posts and they're really quiet in real life? Or do you want a person who has like 2 friends who will be starved and would love to talk with you at some point? I mean, don't you want to have access to see the people that might be sitting next to you?
Or maybe you don't want to know who that person is sitting next to you.
Or you want
maybe
to
you'd rather
avoid
not know.
You just want to sit on the other side of the
The
plane.
fact that it actually works with LinkedIn too kind of scares me. But like, hey, you know, I hear are you hiring? Are you hiring?
Yeah, I know.
I'm stuck on this flight with you for 5 hours. Are you hiring?
Oh, you mean you work for Google?
You do?
Great.
You know,
Hey,
I got some
it's
ideas
nice
for
to
ice cream
meet you.
sandwich.
Yeah.
Julio, would you update your profile if this became widespread?
No, heck no. I just, I'll just stay in blissful anonymity. And if I sit down in my airplane seat and the person next to me, you know, turns with an angelic smile on his or her face, I will lunge for my earbuds, stick those in my ear, and call it a day.
I always thought that there's these glasses from Vuzix. It's the ones with this, you can see a screen in them. That, I think, is the ultimate sign, do not talk to me on an airplane. Because it's not just earbuds, because sometimes people miss those and they start talking to you.
Yeah.
A book is
Or
one.
ignore
For some
them.
reason, people think they can interrupt while you're reading a book.
Yeah.
But if you're wearing those glasses,
I think what you need here is an alternate style or type of profile that is essentially shut up profile, right?
Yeah,
So if you log into it, you're still anonymous, but you know that you're sitting next to someone who also doesn't want to say a word
Exactly.
to you, and everybody's happy.
But there's a flip side to this. You know, in some ways, having the ability to pick the nature of your seatmate could be useful, because to give you an analogy, one year when I was in college, I had there was an option to sort of pick the kind of roommate you wanted to have, and I did not avail myself of that. I just left it at random, and the roommate I got happened to be the campus narcotics dealer. So that was not.
That didn't work out so well, huh?
Didn't
All
work
right.
out very well.
Let's check the calendar.
Starting today, you can get Android 4.0 on your Nexus S. GSM models will receive the update first. Pre-orders for the Asus Transformer Prime begin today in the UK. This weekend, you can get yourself the white Samsung Galaxy S2 for under $100 at T-Mobile. Tomorrow, December 17th, the PlayStation Vita goes on sale in Japan. And Monday, December 19th, the ITC will rule on whether HTC infringed on some of Apple's patents or not. We'll finally find out.
Time to look at what's incoming. Incoming message. Got a call to 260-TNT show with a business opportunity if the ban on phones actually happens.
Hey, TNT crew. Joshua, the ebook architect from Austin. Just an idea on this whole issue of whether or not you should be able to drive, you know, talk on the phone while you're driving. One of the issues brought up was the idea that if you're talking to somebody sitting next to you in the car, that it's not that big of a deal because, you know, they're right there next to you and you don't have to think about it in your brain and imagine them. Well, really, this is just a business opportunity. Where are the holographic projectors for our phones that would allow the person to sit next to us in our car while we're driving and talk to us that way? Anyway, love the show. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and not just like some flimsy, like, three-dimensional representation. I'm talking holodeck here. I like where he's going.
Okay, so you think that, and then, so this should be the car manufacturer should be doing this?
No, phone. He says it's in the phone.
It's in
so
the phone. I think. Well, I see. I would think all the hardware should be in the car already.
Right, embedded in the seat, projecting up.
Because it also is going to need a camera in the headrest so they can see out the window and everything. I mean, it's going to be very hard positionally.
It'll be like a kind of, I don't know, the next generation of in-cab technology, right? It would just be standard.
You know, by the time we figure that out, though, we'll have self-driving cars. It's one of those
That's
things
true.
we can't get the hologram.
Not
then
so
maybe
necessary.
Yeah.
those people could be for the lonely people on the airplanes.
Maybe the holograms could be driving the car.
Yeah, so they have this illusion of control. Your holographic DD.
You get the illusion that the person is actually driving you. Are you comfortable with all this, Julio?
I'm gonna pivot slightly and just state the painfully obvious. I see this every day. People driving a car with one hand on the wheel and another hand holding a cell phone makes absolutely no sense. I don't understand why that is even possible.
Well, we can tell you in our next email. Adam Dubé, doctoral candidate in experimental and applied psychology at the University of Regina, says laws against distracted driving are not legislating stupidity, and explains why. He conducted a study investigating the effect of communicating while driving on driving performance using 3 different modalities: cell phone, hands-free, and texting. So you're holding it, you're talking wirelessly without hands-free, or you're actually trying to text. He says, as you reported, each modality had a detrimental effect on driving performance. Didn't matter whether you were hands-free or not. However, he says, I also measured whether people were aware of these detriments. The result was participants thought they drove better while communicating than when they were driving undistracted. And he explains this like the awareness can be thought of as metacognition, thinking about our thinking process. Before completing the task, all participants thought that communicating while driving would have a negative effect. But the result likely occurred because when communicating, people don't notice their decreased performance because they're distracted. And their mind fills in the gap, assuming that everything proceeded according to plan. They don't see that they almost hit that truck when they were swerving around. In some, distracted driving is not only dangerous, but our minds may be designed so that we are unaware of the danger. So if you're like, yeah, I talk on the phone all the time, it's fine, I'm never in danger, you don't know you're in danger.
So the problem, again,
your mind fills in the gap.
It goes down to it. The problem is people. If these damn people are driving these cars.
Exactly.
So get on a train. Every time people say that about self-driving cars, I'm like, yeah, it's a train. You just sit there.
Adam, if you can, I'd like you to follow up and tell me, is it okay to honk at the people who are on the phone, or does that make them even more distracted and actually make it more dangerous? Because I really want to honk at those people, but then I don't, because I'm like, well, that's just going to probably startle them into doing something even stupid.
You could startle somebody else by accident.
Yeah, exactly. So,
email from Chloe in Austin, Texas. Yesterday, during the SOPA markup session by the House Judiciary Committee, Representative Berman of California asked his colleagues to, quote, pay attention to our intentions, not what we actually wrote in the bill, end quote. Intentions don't become law, bills do. If you want a better law, you have to write a better bill. Fond affections for the show. Brilliant point, Chloe. This is you're light years ahead of.
Did Representative Berman actually say that?
I looked this quote up. It's there. Yeah, it was in there.
Pay attention to our attention. Look, I know we're saying we're going to round up everyone and put them in a detention camp, but we're only going to round up the bad people. Don't worry about the horrible law that we're passing. We'll use it for good. Does this disturb you as much as it disturbs me, Julio?
Absolutely.
It's frightening that someone would actually say that without realizing. That's another example of doing something dangerous and not realizing.
Well, hopefully there's a lot more context around that. Maybe he didn't just. If that was his only statement, it's horrible. And
all right, good benefit of the doubt.
Oh, I'm hoping that some kind of person that actually has a position of power like this didn't actually mean it that way. Maybe he just misspoke. I'm guilty of that all the time.
All right, I like your positive attitude.
Optimism for the weekend.
Yeah. All right, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. Thanks to everybody on our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. We've got almost 4,000 folks in there reading stories, submitting stories, voting on stories. The voting is actually the most important. Once the submitting's done, we want to know, okay, what stories do y'all like? What stories do you not like? You can vote stuff up. You can vote stuff down. technewstoday.reddit.com. Don't forget to submit your favorite moments of TNT or any show on TWiT to twit.tv/bestof. Jason's going to be putting that together next week. Best moments of the year, twit.tv/bestof. As much information as you can get us about what that best moment was, put it in there. If you have applied for the listener co-host, or it's not that, that's Buzz Out Loud. Yeah. It's the open mic show, and you haven't heard from us, then you're not going to be on this year. And please don't be upset. We got a few hundred people wrote in, and we're only putting 3 on the air. So just write back again next year, and we'll be recording that on Monday. Julio, it's so good to have you back on the show again. I've got your book up here, iPad Means Business, Apple's tablet computer changing the work world. Anything else you want to talk about? What's going on with you?
No, just thank you for putting the book up on the shelf. I didn't request or expect that, and so that's a nice Christmas present. I really appreciate it very much.
Cool. Yeah, go check it out. iPad Means Business. Thanks to everybody else who is watching or listening. You can find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call. Our phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. Lauren Good from All Things D joins us on Monday, and Sarah Lane will be back from Barcelona then, too. Looking forward to both of them on Monday. We'll see you then.